your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just the
Duo.
of feathery brethren, weathering any season to see the Eagles eating teams like Scrammy's top with cheese. It's Philadelphia. Both and Zach kicking it cooler than
two.
Penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm, but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Both and Zach coming at you with stats and things flapping.
We are going to rip out the hearts of other podcasts. We are going to bite off their eyeballs. We're going to start every segment watching the scene from The Last of the Mohicans where the guy takes a bite out of the other guy's heart. We may not be good, but we're going to be nasty. We're going to reflect the blue-collar nature of this city. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends. Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn here on a Wednesday evening. We're going to get into the Jalen Hurts situation, what's going on with the Eagles. We will do that after the break, but we're going to start with the football news, and that is Demar Hamlin and what is going on with him after suffering cardiac arrest on the field during Monday Night Football. And I hope it's not intrusive, but I think we need to talk to Marissa here to start the show, because you have a more important perspective than either of us do. First of all, how are you?
It's been I feel like for anybody who watched what happened, like you can't feel anything but like just heartbreaking, and yesterday was like tough. Like I didn't sleep the night before. I kept like reaching over and like touching Michael and like, he's
checking
like,
his chest,
yeah, he's like rolling over, like not even like, and like, it's a very emotional thing. And I mean, I will try and keep my composure, but it's hard to talk about because it's just like, how do you put a game in perspective when, like it's silly, the stuff we like talk about sometimes when like something like this can happen. And, like I love football. I love talking the X's and O's and all of that. But at the end of the day, like none of it matters, playoffs, we talk about seeding, whatever, like the thing that matters in the NFL right now is Demar Hamlin and Demar Hamlin only, and all those other guys on the Bills team, because they had to watch and witness such a horrific event, and it's just a very sad thing, and can't stop thinking about him like everybody else, I feel like.
Zach, what's going on with you?
Well, I mean, I feel for Marissa here. Obviously, I should say I feel mostly for Demar Hamlin and those who know him well, his family, his teammates. But what's going on with me is you hate to say like the show goes on, because that game was postponed or suspended, I should say, maybe canceled. And the Eagles paused for a day, but the NFL is back today. They have there's like week 18 that every team is preparing for, the Bills included, the Bengals included. And it seems odd to think that, like Marissa said, football seems trivial relative to Demar Hamlin, but there's going to be 16 football games this weekend, right? And it's the, like, that is almost to a certain extent the push-pull here, I imagine, for every player. I mean, what we do is inconsequential relative to what they do, but there's kind of like this caveat emptor component to football where you accept. I don't even know if accept's the right word, but like you acknowledge going into it the violent nature of it, although we've never seen it to that extent. But the reality is 24 hours before that game, we were on this podcast talking about Josh Sweat, right? And like Josh Sweat got up, left the hospital, is with the team today. But that there was a period there where we didn't know if that was going to be the case, and every injury is serious.
They're human beings. Like,
exactly.
I like Deion Dawkins. I feel like he was on SportsCenter with Kevin Nagandi, and He's like, we're not athletes, we're not celebrities, we're not these superstars, like we're human beings. And I think, we all forget that, like I have such a personal connection, and like, we get on here and we talk about like, oh my God, the defense was terrible and things like that.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, they're human beings, and like, it's so much bigger than the game.
But if I can ask you, Marissa, and Bo, I don't mean to
Please.
jump on. I'm curious from a player's perspective, and you can kind of give us a real player's perspective, is how much of that part of football is accepted, is acknowledged, or is it one of those things where you kind of compartmentalize it, you put it into a corner, and you try not to even think about it or acknowledge it?
I think a lot of it is you try not to think about it. I mean, like, which is horrible to say because it's like you see every week's, an injury like Josh Sweat's or an injury like Tua's, where we just like, oh my gosh, and then we move on. And it's like, we shouldn't always move on, like player safety is very important. And like we were watching the game on Monday night we play game nights on Monday night a lot of times because the guys are off on Tuesday. So I was watching the game with a bunch of Michael's teammates and their wives, and we were playing a game and we saw he got hurt and nobody really like paused at first. And then we saw like it was bad, like everybody else. And like the room went silent. And that's crazy that like it doesn't even phase us at some point when a guy's down, because a guy's still down, a human like this, someone's still very hurt. And that silence that came over everybody watching like the reactions from the Bills players and seeing like just the true emotion on all of their faces, like, and me watching Michael and his teammates and the look on their faces, like, they're on the Browns, doesn't matter. Like, doesn't matter. They're on the Bills. Like, they're all part of this NFL brotherhood and team. And like, to see somebody like in a position that you're in that happen, like none of them had any words, like none of them knew what to say, but like the looks on their faces, I feel like said it all. And, I was holding back tears and the girls didn't know what to say. And it's just like, I don't even know, like, I really don't even know if I'm making sense right now. And like over the past 2 days, I've been just like really trying to come up with the words, but I think we just all have to remember, like, when we're talking about silly things, when we're all worrying about silly things in our day-to-day lives, like, we were talking about before this, like all the girls were like, we got to pack up and move home, the off season, and where are we going to be next year, and all of this stuff, and like guys that are free agents, and are we going to be picked back up, and all of that. Like at the end of the day, like none of it matters. None of it matters. It's a job. You being with your loved ones is what's important. And I do think like, I know players know the risk, but they've worked their whole lives to be there. But I don't think they ever imagined the risk to be that. I don't think you walk on the football field and ever think something like that's going to happen. Maybe you sprain an ankle or, you tear your ACL, which is terrible too. It's not to make light of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I think they put it in the back of their head and they don't think about it. I mean, I don't want to speak for Michael, but I don't think Michael likes to think about it. And Michael's dealt with a back injury this year and all season long has just thought about playing again. And I'm the one thinking about like, you need your back the rest of your life. You need your back to play with our kids in the yard one day. You know what I mean? But they're like these competitors that all they think about is the game and they've worked their whole lives for it. But to what extent is it like worth it? I mean, I wouldn't change Michael's journey has been incredible and I'm so happy to see him follow his dream, but you do have to wonder, like to what extent, is your health is worth no amount of money. Your health is worth nothing. And, obviously I've gone through health stuff in the past and I feel like that's put things in perspective for me. And, I just keep thinking about Demar Hamlin and just every day I'm like, he needs to be okay. And I give a huge credit to the doctors and everything that acted in the way they did. And I said this on our Jets podcast this morning. I had no idea of the procedures in place. Like, and I work in sports and my husband plays in the NFL. And it was truly amazing to me that there's a airway specialist on the sideline at an NFL game. Like, that's incredible. And not to say like we would ever want them to be used, but I think the way they acted in that circumstance like needs to be commended. And, I don't know where to go from here, but yeah.
I have a larger thought on the NFL, which we can save for a little bit later in the discussion. But
like contracts being guaranteed and all of that.
Well, I mean, like,
I agree. I 100% agree. And that's my opinion and my opinion only. And I'm not gonna.
It is so great that they had the personnel on hand to deal with this, right?
Yes.
It's amazing. They saved his life, and as people have said correctly, like this was, other than in the middle of a hospital, this was the best place for this to happen to somebody, right? It wouldn't have happened like this if he wasn't playing football, but that's true.
Right.
And like for them to have these procedures in place is awesome. But like if we're actually thinking about it, like they have these procedures in place to protect themselves because they don't want something to happen while they're broadcasting a game. If they cared about the player safeties, then yes, like guys would have health insurance beyond 5 years if they even got to having a vested contract, for playing 3 years, right? Like
agreed,
guys
because you don't get
contracts.
vested.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And like mental health, like the Chiefs had to play a day after Jovan Belcher committed suicide at the team facility. Like let's I mean, I know that was a decade ago, but we know what the incentives are here. And
well, I think the fact that all of us were like, NFL, cancel the game, like that shouldn't have even been a question. You know what I mean? Like when this happened and you could see the look on those guys, like that player safety, those Bills players were distraught. That is unsafe for every single one of them to take a snap then, maybe next week. Maybe some guys can't even play the rest of the year. Maybe some guys will be done with football and that's okay. But like mental health, player safety, like that should have, I mean, and I don't like from what they said, that wasn't a question about the game being played, but all of us online being like, when is the game going to be canceled? Like not sure if the game's going to be canceled. I think that's, that's
right.
telling that we're not sure. Yes.
The fact that everybody's
obvious.
Expectation was that they were going to want to continue the game is like, there's a truth in that. And I probably believe that they weren't actually going to force them to play, in that 5-minute span. I think it was obvious to everybody. And there are some actual, like logistical reasons why it would have made sense for them to not just say the game is canceled right now, especially while they're trying to get Demar Hamlin safely to the hospital. Right. And like, just because they haven't called the game within 20 minutes does not mean they hadn't already made the decision to call the game. Like
100%.
I think
more so the social response that not sure is like what we're trained to think, that like the game just continues on. That part of it, I think, is sad as like a society that like we just think the game will continue on. And I get it, like life continues on, but like in a moment like that, like nothing matters.
And it's part of, I mean, we've talked about like the cognitive dissonance of like being a football fan and, being married to a football player and like knowing that these are like the risks that happen on the field, and the entertainment is great. But like the bargain is becoming, less and less appetizing. And I understand people who like, this is the kind of thing that like, they don't want to watch football anymore.
So again, I can't speak for players, and Marissa
I don't want to speak for Michael
literally
either,
much closer to this than I am. In the locker room today, speaking to a number of players about this, what struck me was reporters were, I don't want to say begging the question, but essentially framing it in a similar way to the way you did, Bo. And what struck me is you like you framed it as the cognitive dissonance of fans, and it's like players were very honest about about the reality of their job. I have here a quote from James Bradbury. You definitely think about the risk and stuff that you take as a player when stuff like this happens. But like I said, this is what I signed up for. This is my job, and I am expected to go out there and play. So that's what I'm going to do. Jason Kelsey said, I kind of talked about this on our podcast today. It's kind of a little odd situation because football is a sanctuary for guys to get away from things all the time. When you go out on the field, you escape problems going on off the field, family members, friends, whatever it is. By going out and playing a game is a good way to not have to worry about anything. For me personally, I think playing football, even though this happened, playing football kind of helps you cope and be out there with your friends and your brothers on the team. You go out and you play a game. That's kind of the way I process it. Everybody is going to process it differently, though. And there were a few other guys who spoke about this in the locker room, and it's by no means were they minimizing what occurred. I mean, their hearts were out to Hamlin, and like they felt it as players. But I think what struck me from hearing them speak, and again, Marissa can speak to this much better than I can, is like they understand what they signed up for to an extent, right?
I think
what we
to an
saw
extent.
Monday night, what we
Right.
saw Monday night was unprecedented, but like they don't talk about it like a contact sport. They talk about it they talk about collision sport. The word that they kept using was violent. Like this is a violent game that hearing the players speak, it was as if like they recognized the violence. But like I said, what happened Monday night was a different level than anything we've seen.
So
Yeah.
what was the scene, Marissa, as the night went on for you guys?
It was tough. We had just started playing a game, and
What game were you playing?
this like charades game. It's actually very fun.
Okay.
First round you have to bring light to it. First round you get as many words as you want. Second round you only get one word. It's the same items.
Okay.
And then third round you have to act it out. So it's very important to remember. It's like also a remembering game.
Okay.
And yeah, so nobody was speaking.
Sounds like a good game for us to play on the show at some point.
I feel like Zach would win because Zach's got like the memory of, but it was dead silent. Nobody really knew what to say. And they kept showing the pictures, and we ended up like turning the channel because we me as the journalist wanted to continue to watch the coverage of everything, but I couldn't watch it. Like kept seeing like the faces of Stefan Diggs just bawling, crying. Like that was like hard. And, like they're these tough guys, and, but they're all like, Michael's a little teddy bear at heart, and, like they all have big hearts. They all have, but like, I don't even think they knew how to react and what to say. And obviously the girls were all very emotional, and, like, because we're not the ones out there, and we have to watch, and witness every day when they come home and they're sore and all of that. And that's one aspect of this game. But like, it is something that like, I do think like, you understand the risks, but I don't think I don't think anyone fully expects to ever happen.
Sure.
And obviously like something like this has never happened, but these severe injuries, I think, you think you'll be okay. And the truth is that's not always the case. And I mean, as the night went on, like we had, conversations, and the game was canceled, and everyone was on their phones pretty much the whole time. And we did end up like an hour later playing the game, and it was like nice to like these people become your family. I've talked about a lot of times how, I have such a big family at home, and I'm so used to being around my cousins and everything like that. But, when you're in these different cities all the time, like these people become the people you're closest with. And like, it was almost like so nice to be with them in that moment. Like, I'm sure like they had said, a lot of the Bills players like wanted to be with each other, and, and it's like a camaraderie that it's a world that you only understand. And I mean, it didn't make it easier to deal with what was going on, but I feel like having the support of people that understood the situation, it was very like comforting. And I mean, I've talked about it with Michael when we got in the car to go home. I was like sobbing, crying. I was like, I can't imagine what his mom is going through. I mean, I just think like, thank God his mom was there. Like, I mean, I cannot imagine, I don't have kids, but I cannot imagine as a mom or as a wife.
That's the second time you've dropped how badly you want kids. We know, Marissa.
Yes.
Michael knows.
Yes, he knows. He knows. But I hope he's listening. No, but I mean, like for his mom, I mean, I can't imagine her watching in the stands, but thank God she was in Cincinnati to be there and be with him. And like watching from afar is so hard, but let alone like, being in, it's just, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I just feel for them so much. And again, I don't want to like these other guys too, like all these other players, like we don't know what's going to happen in week 18. And obviously the attention is on Demar, and that's how it 100% should be in his family and getting him better. But like, we should be talking also about like all of these other guys that are going to have to go out there with like Super Bowl hopes, and hopefully like, I don't physically know mentally and compartmentalize whatever, but like, I don't know how you could do that. I know these guys are tough. I know these guys have worked their whole lives for this, but like, how do you just go take a snap and play like norm? I don't know how you do it.
And it's gross that it's like in our minds, it's like, oh, like I wonder if they're gonna get a boost out of this and like play inspired, or like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna have a letdown. Like
who cares?
That's gross.
That's what it should be, is who cares? And I truly hope, and I feel like the city of Buffalo is like, the city of Buffalo has been through a lot this year, and between all the storms and everything, and like, I just like, Super Bowl doesn't matter. None of that matters. Like, this team like will awfully forever be bonded by this moment together, and they need to worry about each other and each other. That's it. Like their mental health, how they feel going forward, Super Bowl, all of that's secondary. But I remember where I was at. Michael and I talked about it, and Michael was like, Michael was very upset about it, and just was like, this is the game we play, and you wouldn't hope something like this never happens, and this is crazy that something like this, like the freakness of this, but still at the end of the day, like, it happened, it can happen, it's part of it. So I don't think he didn't say to me like, this scares me, but I as his wife, I feel like I kind of know him, and I do think he was a little like scared about it, taken aback by it, and I don't know how you couldn't be. So
yeah, it was terrifying.
Well, to your point previously about how you don't know how players go on from this or pick up and play, on a different level, I feel really bad for I feel for T. Higgins, right? Who was just playing football, right? Like, and didn't do was just playing football, and like what he must be feeling right now. And again, it's a different level than someone sitting in a hospital.
That he got online from that. Like, that was absolutely not his fault whatsoever. And people that are saying that, like, what are you doing? Like, are you trying to like knock down like another, like, what are we doing here? Like, that's ridiculous, and like, you seeing his mom outside the locker room getting him after the game. Like, all of these guys are affected, not just the Bills players. Like, that's crazy to me. I really feel for him too, because, it was supposed to be, in air quotes, a routine football play. And it's not like T. Higgins was doing anything he has not done all season.
I'm curious, from both of your perspectives, do you think things change? I don't know if change is the correct word, but I read a good column on The Ringer, I'll say, by Kevin Clark about like a night that will change football, right? And I'm curious, like do you think there's a before and after from this?
I'm skeptical. I think there's too much evidence of the way the league operates, and their incentives to think that anything meaningful changes here.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, what's going to change? Like, what is? Well, I didn't read the column.
I mean,
so what is the?
It's more the way football is viewed, the perception of football, perhaps. And again, I don't want to. I mean, I've read quite a bit in the last 48 hours that I don't want to conflate different things that I read.
I think there are things that can change. I think NFL players should have lifetime health insurance. I think NFL players should have guaranteed contracts. I think there's things like that. Not that, again, no money would make up for any of this. Like, there's not a dollar in the world that is worth what Damar Hamlin and his family is going through. But talk about player safety and player, like, valuing players and players having a voice. Like, that's a way to value players and give players a voice, is to make them more, and I'm not saying like, oh yeah, we need, just money, like money would solve things, but like the players should have more power in comparison to the owners and the league. And, that's a way to start. I think that's a way for things to change.
And that is 100% correct. We are supposed to be objective journalists. I'm never going to be objective about players versus owners in football, given what they go through and the risk that they put themselves through, and that they have like the worst labor status of the four major sports. I think it's preposterous and shameful. So I think that's totally right, and I have absolutely zero belief that the owners are gonna like cave in any direction without getting some crazy ask back. That's not how they operate. That's not how they made their money, and that's what they care about. So that's how I feel about that. I don't expect that to change. I think it absolutely should. I think there probably is, for some people, a before and after of like the way that they watch football. I think more likely it's like just part of the sliding scale that a lot of people go through, and like maybe they just care about it a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less. But I don't know. I mean, like, we learn about ourselves time and again that like we have this unbelievable ability to just move on from these, like, whether they're traumatic things or like we just like adjust ourselves to these new realities. And so I don't know. I would like to stay in this moment, but I feel like it will pass.
I think one thing also that I would hope changed would be we remember that and I am guilty of it again, and Michael plays, that we remember they're all human, and we're worrying about fantasy football, and we're like, oh my God, he got 0 catches for me today. Like, what a loser, or like whatever. Like, let's be a little like
now
less
it's not the
harsh.
time to talk about Ryan Kerrigan, Marissa.
You know what I mean? Like, let's remember that at the end of the day, it's a game and it will all be okay. And, to take things like, to not be as vicious online, and, this is a child's game, and it is not life or death until it is life or death. And when it is, that's awful. And we should all look back on how we've responded to things and remember to put things in perspective of what is really important.
Well, I think so much about you and like other family. I did a story on, it's not out yet, but on Sunday I was following a player's family.
And I was thinking about you when this all happened, that this was the week that you did that story. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't imagine, like, how she feels now.
And it's just like, I mean, it's crazy to think about, because like, you have been, you played sports with your kids, your parents watching you, right? In Little League or whatever. Like, I can imagine, I imagine doing the same thing, or like watching my sister play. And you were like so singularly focused and like living or dying with what's going on, right?
Oh yeah.
And for that to be happening like at the highest level in the context of like, 60,000 people all like screaming and reacting to every play, and the person I was talking to, I mean, I can just say, let me pull up the quote. It was with Brandon Graham's wife, and we were talking about the Josh Sweat thing. And she said, just like the experience of watching like her husband play this game. And she says, like, it's an anxiety that I can't explain. It's great. It's entertaining for y'all, but it's crazy for me to watch. And that's like, there are 22 guys on the field, 140 players on each team or whatever it is. And like, there are the tentacles of that extend so far all over the place. And it's good perspective.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was. Oh, I'm sorry. You go. Marissa.
No, I was just going to say, like, the anxiety I feel on game day, I can totally relate to, because it's like within every play. And, it's for safety and health purposes, but it's also like, I know Michael is going to stress if he has a bad play, and the mental side of it of where's my career go if I have a bad play, and, live like, I don't want to say living and dying with every play, because that's a terrible expression right now. But, the pressure I feel just watching him is, I can't imagine, like, some of these like starting quarterbacks and everything. And the pressure just, it's truly hard to describe.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, you're correct. Well, I shouldn't say you're correct. I imagine. Yeah. I can't put myself in your shoes, but I can imagine that. I don't want us to be hypocritical when it comes to like speaking about the entertainment nature of the game, in that we're all part of this industrial complex, right? And like I've discussed it before on the pod, like we make our living based on football happening every Sunday, and the rabid interest from the fan base 365 days a year. And
I feel conflict about that.
And when you talk about
my whole household makes their money on that.
Yeah. And
yeah.
And there are, in addition to the X amount of players and coaches on the field, there are, support staff and equipment staff and team employees and stadium employees and bar owners and transit workers. And I mean, you go on down the list who are all part of this ecosystem. And then you go into, the entertainment value and the gambling and the fantasy football aspect of it. Of course, it is trivial relative to a player's health and a player's life, in this case. But I don't want to be hypocritical to suggest to like, belittle the entertainment nature of it, because it's literally what we do for a living is chronicle this, is play into this. And like I just think it would be hypocritical if we did not acknowledge that, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, do you feel conflicted about that?
I don't imagine on the scale that you do, based on what you said. Like, I recognize that the human element, and I hope both of you can attest to this. Like, I always acknowledge the fact that these are human beings. These are people with lives, with families, with emotions. That these are not just empty uniforms, right?
Yeah.
And
I think you both do an amazing job at that from the player perspective, 100%.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So like literally when I took the job at the Athletic, one of the is I wanted to make sure that I was humanizing these players, showing readers who they are, and kind of taking you behind the scenes of what occurs. But I don't feel conflicted or as conflicted, I should say, about covering a violent sport, in that I recognize, and I could be wrong, and Marissa, again, has more clarity on this than I do, but that like this is something that players sign up for willfully and excitedly, and you and I both have spoken to players who say, like, if you gave them the option, like if you told them the risk, and I recall, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I recall talking to Malcolm Jenkins about this, like understanding what could happen down the line, but like you sign up for it and you do it because you love it, right? And so no, I recognize that this is like James Bradbury said, this is the job that they signed up for, and it's the job that we signed up for, right? And so I don't feel as conflicted about it. Now, where I feel conflicted is like when Demar Hamlin is in the hospital, it's hard to like break down, the Eagles Giants game, right? And
Right.
like Tuesday, you and I both, I had a story, the notes story that I had coming out today, that came out today was supposed to come out Tuesday. And I said, let's take a pause here. Now, one could say, is it much different Wednesday than it is Tuesday? I don't have a good answer for that, right? And if we go on to the second segment of the show and talk about Jalen Hurts' his shoulder and will the Giants play their starters and things of that nature? Yeah, I mean, it's trivial relative to what's happening in a Cincinnati hospital bed right now, right? But like all those players were in there today and they practiced and they were getting ready for a game, right? And it's not that's the reality of the world that they live in. It's the reality of the world that we live in.
Yeah, and there are great benefits to the game of football. I don't think any of us is denying that. Talk like the camaraderie that Marissa is talking about, like the being a part of a team that is like a lifelong thing, and then just like the joy that you can bring. I mean, just watch, for instance, that video of the Walter Payton little press conference for Brandon Graham with all the people he's affected, and like the joy that you can bring people just by winning a game. That is awesome. That is all part of it. But I think the actual like league ecosystem is a little bit bothersome, to put it lightly. And I think that's, I mean, I at least think that we are eyes wide open about that. And
yes,
yeah,
that's a good term.
So,
eyes wide open is a good term about it. Yeah, like I'm not naive to it. Yes,
and I do think, and this is as uncomfortable as I will get, like talking about myself. But I mean, you said it before, Zach, but like my whole operating procedure in the job is trying to like show these guys as humans.
Mm-hmm.
I really think you guys both do an excellent job at that. And I think that's not always the case in the media. And I think it's important to acknowledge like the work that you guys do, because I know how hard you try to do that. And it doesn't go unnoticed, I think, especially from the player perspective. Michael,
I think we could probably do a better job about that on the podcast.
No, I mean, like, I think there's a difference between
Carrie
having
Vincent
fun
has a family.
Yes, but I don't think anything is like done maliciously. I don't think anything is ever, and I think that's okay. I think that's part of, what they sign up for. I think there's a difference between like just brutally attacking someone's character or like death threats and things like that versus, guys know when they had a bad game. Like they're probably the first person to tell you that like, that was terrible. I played horrible. Michael is the biggest critic on his film. Like there is nothing that members of the media can say that would be like, if he does something bad, that would be worse than what he would say. Like if he allowed the sack, he's awful on himself, So like, I think that aspect is very understood and, but like there's a respect factor that isn't always there. And I think you guys do a great job at humanizing players and showing and telling their stories. And I think that's, an athletic plug, like I think a lot of our writers do a great job at that. And, a lot of other writers too, not just at The Athletic, but I think that's important. But Michael texted me twice. Yeah. Michael texted me twice that he agreed with what Zach said, and 10 out of 10 would sign up again for it. So
what did they say about the babies?
But he kept texting me that and saying it twice. No comment on the babies. But he texted me, say I texted you that. So he wanted to get that in, but
I appreciate that, Mike.
Did not reply about the babies comment.
And
here's
and while we while we acknowledge the player side of it too, I also don't want to belittle the fan aspect of it either, right? There are X amount of people tuning into this podcast live at 10:30 p.m. There are
looks like 800,000 is the live number.
There are, however, Marissa gave us the number for the amount of people who listened to this podcast last year. We know, Bo and I know full well the difference in Philadelphia on a Monday morning after an Eagles win and the Monday morning after an Eagles loss. Bo chronicled what it was like when the Phillies were in the World Series, right? Like, Bo mentioned before the joy that Brandon Graham brought those fans for the Man of the Year candidate, and just like the day-to-day happiness and excitement that comes in the level of interest that comes from the fans. Like I don't want to belittle football, in part because like I also know how much it means to so many people what happens on Sundays and throughout the year.
That's why Michael plays football. Michael's childhood was the New England Patriots with his dad. Like that was his like livelihood. I've said, many times his bar mitzvah theme was Patriots. Like he worshiped Tom Brady. Like he was a fan first, and that's what, inspired his dream. Michael actually likes strawberries, but
not as much as Casey. All Casey eats is strawberries. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's a good fruit. I'm a big strawberries, raspberries, blueberries. I like the berries. But his fandom is what inspired him to have this dream to play. And I think we're not knocking, being fans. Yeah. Like I grew up a diehard Yankees fan. You guys grew up sports fans. And I think that's like awesome. Being a sports fan is, the excitement, the heartbreak, like the community that it creates. Like there's nothing like it. But, I think that, we can just remember that it's a game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There'll be more games, and, there'll be, another season, another chance. And when we really overreact about things, like it's a game. And,
I guess I just didn't want the position to be football is evil, right? Or like football is inherently bad because, that's,
no, I don't think that's any of our positions.
Okay. I just want to make sure
the league office, the owners, I mean, that's a different discussion. But yeah, the game of football is a great game. Okay. Well, that is still secondary to Demar Hamlin and us hoping and sending good thoughts and praying that he will be okay. And so obviously we'll be following that. And let's take a break. We'll come back on the other side. And as Zach said, we'll talk about Jalen Hurts' shoulder, whether the Giants will rest their starters and things of that nature.
Just give me like 5 seconds. It's loading. Sorry. Processing.
No problem.
I feel like we needed a light in the mood here. Yeah. This is like more classic Birds with Friends.
Babies, Michael.
Still no response about that. I know you're watching.
You know how I say this podcast can get too personal at times? I think we just made it too personal. Let Michael and Marissa go on their own schedule.
Okay, ads are ready.
Say goodbye to last year's outdated, disorganized methods of managing your money and say hello to Rocket Money, the better way to hack your finances in 2023. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills, all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forget about, like that streaming service you bought to watch just one show on, or that free trial you never even used. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you, so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want. Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as a click of the button. Simply find the subscription you don't want and press cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. No more long hold times with customer service or tedious emailing back and forth. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. Rocket Money is a good way for me to find the unused subscriptions that I forget about, and it allows me to cancel my subscriptions with just a click of the button. Stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/athletic. That's rocketmoney.com/athletic. rocketmoney.com/athletic. Winter mornings are brutal, so here's my tip for tackling the day in comfort. Grab new Tommy John loungewear and take cozy wherever you go. When you start the year in Tommy John, you're that much more comfortable, so you can do everything better. Tommy John loungewear, pajamas, and underwear have dozens of comfort innovations like luxuriously soft tri-blend and micromodal fabrics with 4-way stretch, and no lint balls or fuzz. With over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, people love Tommy John. That's why Tommy John doesn't have customers, they have fanatics. Like this Tommy John fanatic who raves, quote, "I bought one pair of loungewear and after wearing them for 2 days, got all the other colors available. The only place I don't wear them is in the shower." Plus, it's all backed by Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free guarantee. Get 20% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/athletic. 20% off right now at TommyJohn.com/athletic. See site for details.
Welcome back, Birds with Friends, Bo, Zach, and Marissa. And we send it over now to the stone cold newsman himself, Zach Berman, who was on the scene at the NovaCare complex as the Eagles returned to media availability.
The Eagles were in their indoor practice bubble today because they did not have practice on the field because it was simply a walkthrough. And I shouldn't use the word simply there because they would tell you their walkthroughs are productive. But in that walkthrough, had it been a full practice, Jalen Hurts would have been a limited participant. Jalen Hurts is the injury that we are all kind of following because he's the starting quarterback, but other injuries of note for the Eagles. Josh Sweat, on a serious note, was released from the hospital on Sunday night. He is with the team. He wants to play, but it doesn't sound like he's going to play. But relative to what that neck injury, what the fears were of it, this is positive news for the Eagles. Miles Sanders, I should say Avonte Maddox, Lane Johnson remain out with the injuries as we expected. Miles Sanders has a knee injury that he's dealing with, would have been limited at practice. Sean Bradley has a wrist injury, I believe would have been limited at practice. Interesting news from the Eagles. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, his 21-day practice window started, so he could return on Sunday. Robert Quinn, his 21-day practice window started as well. And then Brett Toth. We haven't spoken about Brett Toth. He has not played or practiced yet since he tore his ACL last year. But he is his 21-day practice window started. So if there's an injury in the postseason, maybe they get Toth on the field. Who knows? Or in uniform, rather. So that's the news from the NovaCare complex. Back to you in the studio, Bo.
Thank you, Zach. And let's talk about Jalen Hurts, because there was the report, I think, that came out, early Sunday morning that, those embargoed scoops that Adam Schefter always has, that Jalen Hurts, the expectation was that he would play this week or he would be available to play this week if they needed him. That was everybody's sort of expectation coming off the loss to the Saints. And I sort of entered today's press conference with Nick Sirianni expecting that Nick Sirianni would just come out and announce that Jalen Hurts was going to play this week. I sort of thought that, like, in the wake of Demar Hamlin, that the will he, won't he play obfuscation felt a little bit like seedy. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe that's just me being a loser. But I thought that, like, if he was going to play, he would just come out and say he's going to play. He didn't. He said we've still got time to decide and see how things go here. Jeff McClain of the Inquirer reported that he took the first team reps today, but he was limited. He wasn't a full. He was not a full participant. I think it is still up in the air. And I don't know. You tell me. Do you feel less confident today tonight than you were this morning that Jalen Hurts is definitely going to start on Sunday?
No. Now, you and I spoke before Sirianni's press conference, and I thought Sirianni was going to do what he did, right? I thought he was going to say there's no update day to day. We have time to decide. I think Thursday's practice is important. Seeing him throw the ball, seeing the progress he takes. I wrote today, Thursday would be a big sign, and I still believe that. I think he's going to play. Now, unless this injury is more significant than they're letting on, which could be the case. Usually, in my experience covering things, injuries, they're often more serious than less serious, right? They very seldom overplay an injury. They often downplay an injury. That said, this is the timeline. Now, I take that back. This is not the timeline that I expected, because I thought the Eagles would win one of these past two games, and I expected them to clinch this, and I thought we wouldn't see Jalen Hurts until the playoffs. Now that they're in a Week 18 game where they win, they clinch, Jalen, I think, is going to be able to play. I think he will be on the field. It will surprise me if he does not play. I suppose you never say never, and there is question here, but I feel the same way.
But then why wouldn't he have been full today?
Because full is taking your entire allotment of snaps, and I think that the possibility exists that he won't. I think that you have to get Minshew ready in case, right? It's still early in the week.
Not if he's definitely going to play.
Wednesday's practices are typically the practice when they're doing a full practice where they rest guys, right? So I think Thursday's practice is more of an indication.
Okay, I'm not.
Yeah, now I
that.
say I didn't say definitely going to play, because it's why I didn't think Sirianni would say it. They have to see him, right? They have to see him practice here. They didn't get much of a look last week. He didn't take first team snaps last week. I think that there's no reason for them to say on Wednesday that he's going to play Sunday when there's 3 practices or 3 sessions.
Who are they trying to fool? The Giants aren't even going to play their starters.
I don't think it's a matter of trying to fool. I think it's a matter of trying to learn more, you have 3 days more of information, right? It's by no means they feel they need to placate us. So it's not a matter of fooling anyone. I just think it's 3 more days of getting more information.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel, I think, water gun to my toe, I would guess that he's still going to play, but I feel less, I feel it's close to 50-50 in my mind.
And what'd you feel like this morning?
This morning, I felt like it was 90-10.
Oh, wow. So because Sirianni did not announce it,
and the general vibe of the locker room and reading between the lines a little bit. Yeah.
By the way, as a quick aside here, this happens podcasts I have, meetings I have with our editor, when I say Sirianni, I guess the way I say it sometimes activates my computer's device, and then I can't hear you. Is it like the way I say his name? Do I put an emphasis?
Well, I mean,
on
it's
the Siri
literally
part of
in
it?
the name.
Yeah, but do I put an emphasis on the first 4 letters?
I feel like you say it like
don't
I
know
would
this.
say it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do your
It happens
computers
with
do the
Kate.
same thing?
No, but it happens sometimes when I say Casey.
Hmm.
It
Oh,
takes
yeah.
it's like this the C. I don't know.
We have in our bedroom we have Alexas. And there was a show
Now we're
one time,
talking. All right, I'm interested.
and there was a show one time that had that had the name Alexa in it, and every time the name would come up,
Mm,
my Alexa would activate.
mm. Go on.
No, it was just funny. It was annoying. We had to take out the Alexa during that period. Yeah.
Mm. Okay.
Sorry.
Listen, anytime you want to tell us more about your bedroom, we are all ears. The other injuries you mentioned, Zach, are interesting. And there's a bit of a roster crunch now for the Eagles.
Very
if they're
much.
gonna,
Yeah. I would say
activate
more than a
these
bit.
guys. CJ Gardner-Johnson, you mentioned. Robert Quinn, obviously, if Josh Sweat doesn't play, Robert Quinn is an interesting possibility to be activated. Brett Toth.
Expanded rosters is something also back to what our conversation earlier. That is something that could.
What's the number you want, Marissa? What's the right number?
I don't know, 60, like,
And still have a practice squad, or
Or
some of
the
those.
squad.
Yeah, I mean, but some of those guys could be on the active roster, like have more spaces so that, these crazy things don't happen where, guys are being overworked or they're being cut and released and claimed and all of that and bounced around, and more security, if there are more spots. And if you are elevating guys every week, an option, but then guys have to be paid more versus being on the practice squad. So
Right.
it's a money thing.
I think we could give a very, very minor kudos to, like, from a player health standpoint, the changed IR rules. I think help a little bit.
I agree.
Guys don't have to like push through an injury because
Definitely
they can return from injured reserve.
Definitely.
That was a good.
Yeah.
Really, COVID was worth it because of that. They gave us that, right? The league forcing itself to play every game in COVID in the name of really caring about player safety. That's what it was all about. So we thank them for that.
But yes, obviously the Eagles are going to have some gymnastics to do with the roster at the moment.
What do you think, Zach? Do you have any guesses here? I mean, because they also have a situation at punter where they can't activate Brett Kern again. And Aaron Sipos, walked through the locker room in a walking boot today.
Nick wears his number 8 on his visor, which suggests that he's not coming back.
And what would make the most sense would just be signing another punter to the practice squad, keeping Kern there as well, letting that guy punt this week. Yes. And then in the playoffs, you can have unlimited activations, and you could just keep Kern.
I agree,
because they don't have like active roster spots to spare, but it's too late. Like, I mean, it's not.
Yes, one would think they would have done it already.
Why haven't they done it already? So are they going to activate this guy? I mean, it sort of felt like there was a handshake deal when they signed him that would be the case, but
I don't know. I mean, it would be good roster management in my opinion to keep him on practice squad, right? Have an extra spot on the 53. They are in a major roster crunch here, especially. We don't know the timetable for Avonte Maddox injury, but if they're going to keep Avonte Maddox on the active roster, then they have to be thinking he's going to return for a championship game or Super Bowl.
But they otherwise put him on IR last week.
Yeah.
Right? And then you get week 17, week 18, week 1 of the playoffs, and you don't have him in the divisional round. They must think they must think there's a chance he's going to be back for the divisional round.
Exactly. So that was
or they think he's done for the year and they're just waiting. It's one of those two.
Maybe so. But yeah, it's really interesting in that regard. You have Quinn who can be activated. I would need to think someone like Janarius Robinson, some of these guys they've been carrying on the roster in week 18, you're more apt to you have more flexibility to cut them and bring them to your practice squad. And the reason why I say that is because the alternative for these players at that point, unless another playoff team is going to sign them to their 53, you would much rather be on the Eagles practice squad than sign a futures contract somewhere else, right?
Which are nothing, mean nothing.
Exactly. And they're going to get a futures contracts here anyways.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you only have to worry, instead of having to worry about 32 teams, or I should say 31 other teams signing them, now you only have to worry about 13 other teams signing these guys. And our team's really going to sign, whether it's Janarius Robinson or Trey Sermon, or, I mean, they're going to keep a third quarterback, but, Josh Jobe has a special teams role for them. So let's focus now on Janarius Robinson and Trey Sermon. If they wait until Friday afternoon or Saturday to cut these guys,
that's a good point.
Okay, then you bring Quinn and Gardner-Johnson, and then if there's a third guy you're willing to do that for, Kern, to the active roster, and then on Monday you sign these guys to the practice squad, and they're practicing with you and they're eligible to be promoted. You sign them the futures contracts at the end of the year. That's the scenario that I would expect. And it doesn't carry the same risk that it did in week 6 or week 10 or week 13.
That's a good point. Okay.
Let Howie know that I made a good point there. He might. Yeah.
What do you think Howie's response would be if he watched this entire episode?
That you're an hour and 1 minute into it. I don't think Howie's into like an hour and 1 minute into things. So
what does that mean?
He'll tell you he's got like a short attention span often, right? He's go. So an hour and 1 minute podcast, you really need to make it worth it.
He needs Roman for his attention span.
I'm not going there. Howie's done a real good job this year. I'll say that. This is a good roster.
Of course.
Yes.
What? Who's debating that?
I was trying to change the subject.
All right. Is there anything else news-wise that we should discuss, Zach?
News-wise. So yeah, Gardner-Johnson. I mean, we shouldn't. That's huge for this team. They need him back. And what do you think happens when he does come back?
I think they're gonna. I think their best thing is to have Blankenship at safety and Gardner-Johnson at nickel, and then in base you can have Gardner-Johnson deep. But I think they're better off that way. I mean, Josiah Scott made that nice interception, but I in the interest of getting your best players on the field, I think that's the right answer.
What would it take for Robert Quinn to do for you to say that was a good trade?
To say it was a good trade?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he balls out in the playoffs, if he's a demon, yeah, then it was a good trade. I think that's fair. Okay. It's not done and dusted yet, but
are you operating under the presumption that the Giants aren't playing their starters?
I'm operating under the presumption. I mean, you can't just rest everybody.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you literally can't. It's not like when the you had the COVID rules and you could really like sit a bunch of guys. But my expectation is they're gonna sit the guy, anyone who matters and is like even, borderline banged up. I mean, I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to play. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to play. I don't think Dexter Lawrence is going to play. I don't know. What do you think?
The point spread would suggest Vegas is expecting that, and the fact that that line hasn't.
Well, and they're also expecting Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. By the way, circling back to Howie's attention span real quick, it's one of our favorite anecdotes from the year, which was after the Tampa Bay game last year, the snowstorm, and Howie said that he's not defrosting the car, he's just wiping a piece off and
driving very recklessly in the middle of the night.
Driving, wants to get home. So, yeah, that I think is that's what I was referring to when Howie's not watching an hour and 4 minutes into this.
Okay, he could be listening.
Good. Depends what traffic's like on 76, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about from the Saints game?
I mean, the offense was really bad. I think so. Look, I don't want to make Jalen Hurts out to be more than he is, but I think I'm making him out to be appropriately what he is. I think they win. When I went back and watched that game, they win that game if Jalen Hurts is the quarterback. There were so many, like the problems that they had in that game. I don't think were problems where you say this is going to cost them from winning. This is going to keep them from winning the Super Bowl. I think these are problems where you say if they had their starting quarterback, this is different. And so I'm not letting the offense off the hook. They played the way they played. They had 10 points. They had 4 3-and-outs to start the game. I wouldn't be worried about that being a concern unless Jalen Hurts, unless the injury is more serious than we think.
I mean, that is my concern, is that we don't know what Jalen's going to look like.
Yes.
We don't, even if he plays, we don't know how he's going to look. The shoulder could really affect him. He could get hit and hurt again. So yeah, I think that's the concern. But yeah, I mean, like the way that Gardner-Minshew played is like, that's a concern about Gardner-Minshew, less so about the offense. I mean, I think we didn't know that they had a floor that low until that game, offensively. And so that changes things a little bit, even with the backup quarterback. But you would expect that is solved to some degree when they have their quarterback back. Even
today, Kelsey was really beating himself up over the way he played. Did you think that was a bad Kelsey game?
I did. I mean, it's high expectations, but it seems like that. Plus, like a lot of I mean, I would imagine he's also taking credit or blame for a lot of the communication issues, like the snapping issues.
Sure. And the timing, yes.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Driscoll?
I thought it was okay. I mean, I thought he did about as well as you would expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think I did not think that the sacks. I think the sacks were on Gardner-Minshew.
I saw Lane in the locker room, he was in the weight room today. He wasn't in the locker room, but you see him around. I'm curious what the timetable is. If the first game of the playoffs, he'll be out there. Okay. They really need. It would be like an utter collapse if they, or I should use better terminology for this podcast. It would be a football downfall for them to lose 3 in a row and cost themselves the 1 seed. Like they need to.
Yes.
Now I look. I'm going to shout out Elliot here. Elliot said he thinks they need to get style points here to rebuild confidence. I don't think that's the case. I think I think back to 2007
like gymnastics routine.
I think back to 2017 and Foles played poorly against the Raiders. I
was thinking about that game with Minshew. Yeah.
They escaped that game with a win. They did just enough. Darby had, I think, the touchdown at the end of the game, and that clinched the home field. Foles looked awful in the season finale against the Cowboys. That was the Sudfeld game. And then, we all forgot about it a few weeks later, right? They don't need style points. They don't need to look like they did earlier this year. They just need to win. They just need to get that 1 seed, have 2 weeks to regroup, put a plan together, and you see who you play.
Yeah, they just got to get to the bye. That's what it's all about. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Marissa, how you doing? How you holding up?
I'm doing good.
How many podcasts did you do today?
This is 3.
Good for you.
Yes. But all hours of the day. But all great conversations. I enjoyed every single one of them.
And there is one thing I believe we have to circle back on before we sign off. Okay. Have you gotten any interesting presents lately that you might have on hand?
For our audio listeners, Zach just threw his head back. He's got a look of disgust on his face. He knew Bo would bring this up. I thought.
No, I actually didn't think Bo would bring it up. I thought I I thought Bo could read the room a bit, but
What do you?
I
This has
mean,
nothing to do with you. I'm just asking about Marissa's life. What's going on in her world?
I will just say that, one of, I really, like I said earlier, you guys do such a great job of telling these guys stories, but you also do such a good job of making this fun and making this show, unique and different and silly. And I think that is why people like listening so much. But Zach, I'm going to have to do it. So I had a my favorite things dinner tonight with a bunch of the Browns' wives, which was very nice to be all together, in light of everything going on. And so you basically bring one of your favorite things and you get it for every single girl. It's like a small price limit. It's not like these boys' price limits and their secret Santas. It's like $15 to $20 and you get one of each for every girl. And then you get one of each for everyone. Well, one of the girls went a little overboard and I'm really glad she did because now I am a proud owner of a hot pink Stanley mug, just like Zach.
mine's not hot pink, by the way.
Zach's is in hot
Mug
pink.
twins.
But I can't wait to sip it on the pod with Zach. Now we just got to get Bo one, and then we could be Stanley.
At this point, you can
influencers.
expense it, or I could just give you mine because I'm getting rid of it anyway. So
I don't want your water bottle. Thank you very much.
they're dishwasher safe. So I mean, you go to a restaurant, you drink from a glass.
Why are you getting rid of it?
You're not getting rid of it, Zach. So Sheil, Zach, Bo, and I had a group chat, and I sent. Sheil was asking what the mug was, and I found this story in the New York Times, and I'll just read the title.
We don't have to do this. We really don't.
The Sisterhood of the Stanley Tumbler. I think that says it all.
Zach is so worried about his machismo, but your uncle, Marissa, is taking his on to the construction site.
So, yes, my uncle is obsessed with his Stanley mug. He initially, like I said,
free
thought it
advertising
was.
we're giving here.
Yes, if Stanley's listening, we would love to have them sponsor the pod. But yeah, my uncle thought it was like
Zach wants
Stanley,
that just so he doesn't, so it'll be free.
Yes.
Like Morty Seinfeld, like a good deal. Yeah.
Zach wants to return his, but now that I have one, there's no way Zach can return his.
I agree.
So, yeah, I haven't used it yet because I'm gonna wash it because I just got it. But I'm very excited. Can't wait to be hydrated.
100 ounces a day, Marissa.
Yes.
That's the number. So
it's a made up number.
So
It's
drink.
a phony
I agree,
number.
Zach.
So drink 2.5 of these.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. You drink one before noon. You drink one before dinner. You drink a half before bed. That's the key. Yep.
All right. Now I got to see if I can find the thing from BFOP Shaz that he sent us like a year ago about how fake the water thing is.
I don't know. I saw something on water again this week.
I mean, Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady does 150 ounces or something of that nature.
Yeah, of like creatine or whatever.
No, water. He drinks water. He believes in hydrating.
Of HGH. That's what he's doing. All right, I can't find it, but it's pseudoscience.
Well, Zach, I will help you transition off this because before we go, I really need to ask Bo his take on this since he's our U.S. soccer representative. I want to know his take on the news that.
Well, I didn't have this line. I think I gave credit to DFOP Noah for this, but we have finally arrived. We are finally a soccer nation. This is what this tells us. This is the drama worthy of a true sicko soccer nation. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah. As soon as I was reading everything, I'm like, oh, I gotta ask Bo his thoughts on.
It's wild. This. I mean, nothing new to say here, but what an unbelievable breach of trust. Obviously unforgivable, but unbelievable.
Yeah.
But also what a crazy situation.
Yeah.
What a crazy scenario. I think you sort of feel for everybody.
Yeah.
I saw, and again, not to make light of what's discussed here because there is a serious part of it, but
right.
To Bo's point about us being a soccer nation, I saw it was. Sorry, I didn't even say Siri. I don't know how Siri got activated. there was something there that Master T, I think he retweeted it, that said the U.S. team literally has the son of a president on the team, and the scandal that is going on with the players' parents is just New Jersey soccer parents hashing things out, right? And it's funny that that's how it came out. But yeah, it's a sad situation.
Crazy.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut off your water take, Zach, if you want to. I just popped in my head that I had to get that in.
Yeah, no, I don't understand. I don't understand why Bo is so adamant against hydrating yourself.
I'm not anti-hydration. I'm anti-fake, like.
It's a number to shoot for. It's
how much water do you drink a day, Bo?
Probably not enough.
Yeah,
but this 100 benchmark it's a phony thing.
It's like having a number of push-ups you do a day. It's just something. Okay. It just gives you a goal to
it's like treating Malcolm Gladwell like he's a scientist.
All right, we don't need to open up that rabbit hole. Bo has ripped on me in the past for enjoying Malcolm Gladwell's.
Just because you read something doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, but
as a journalist you should know.
I recognize
he doesn't read fiction,
but it doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's
except when it comes to science.
I'm with Zach on the water. Yeah. I drink a lot of water every day.
There are times when you think you're hungry and you're really just thirsty, and it's good for your skin. It's good for your organs. It's like, yeah, hydrating yourself. I don't know why this is a controversial take. Like you're pitting me. Yeah, I'm not ashamed of saying drinking water is important.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Put a little lemon in there. A little lemon water. I like that.
You could. Okay. I appreciate, it's like a chore, 40 ounces before lunch, 40 ounces before dinner, and 20 ounces before bed.
I enjoy drinking water though. Like I don't have a problem doing that. Like I know some people like can't, like don't enjoy drinking water. Like I easily drink that much every day. But Bo doesn't believe it.
Yeah, try it sometime, Bo.
Yeah.
You know what I like about water? Swimming.
I like to swim.
I think we should end this pod.
Yeah, we should definitely end this podcast.
We're going to have another one on Friday. So
yes.
Another one on
basically Friday at this point.
We'll talk to Deniz. We got to get our schedule straight, but we'll figure that out, hopefully. And yeah, that's about it. Marissa, thank you for your insight tonight.
I hope I made sense. I hope I wasn't rambling. It's a lot of thoughts to get off, but hopefully it all made sense. And I hope everybody is thinking about Demar Hamlin and, putting a little stuff, putting things in perspective in their own life and not worrying about the small stuff, because life can change in an instant. And
well said.
The people in your life are the most important thing.
Well said. Well, that'll do it. So for Marissa and Zach and Michael, I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. We will talk to you on Friday. And as always, we love you.